Welcome to the Dave Whitty Show with your host, Dave Whitty. Folks, thanks for tuning in to the very first episode of my new podcast. I just want to give you a little briefing and a little rundown on what I plan to achieve with this podcast. First off, my name is Dave Whitty. I was born and raised in Mount Pearl, Newfoundland and Labrador, and I now reside in downtown, beautiful St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, of course. I'm an artist, I'm a musician, I'm an avid sports fan, I love things Newfoundland. I've released 3 albums of original material over the years, the first being an EP in 2013 called Let It Rest. In 2015, I released a self-titled album featuring full band, and in 2018, I released another full band, full-length, called Talkin' Back Fool. Over the course of these podcasts, of course, I will chat about those things, and especially depending on who I'm having in to chat with, but, I'll just leave it there for now. This is going to be a podcast about things general. There's no real specific theme to it. It's not going to be just chatting with artists. It's going to be chatting with interesting people or people who I've met over the years or people who I may have not have met. I'm going to reach out to all sorts of different people and try to keep this as entertaining to an average listener. So if arts isn't your thing, maybe you can still take something out of this, or if sports isn't your thing, you can still take something out of this. I'm going to try to hit different people with different angles and just try to find interesting and unique stories out of interesting and unique people. I hope to reach people obviously within Newfoundland and Labrador, or within Canada, or people who I've met along my travels as of being a touring musician. I've traveled, across Canada numerous of times. I've played in the United States, and I've spent a number of years in Mexico performing as well. So with the people that I've met over the years, it's hopefully going to allow to have different select people on, and who might be able to come on and tell their own tales and their own sides of different stories and stuff like that. So just going to try to keep it interesting and keep it flowing with new unique guests every week. With that being said, that is what I plan to do, is I'm going to try to put out a new podcast, hopefully every week, if not every 2 weeks. It's a learning curve for me. It's a new process as a person who's generally been on stage for, over half of my life. I feel very comfortable in front of a microphone and speaking to people, but this is a kind of a new medium. It's where I don't actually have anybody to banter off with. There's no questions coming at me. I'm just kind of chatting with people or I'm going to chat with people, but I'm just kind of chatting with myself right now. So you're just trying to keep the flow going and trying to keep it alive. So please bear with me, obviously, over the next few episodes as I try to learn how to do that myself and feel comfortable doing so. Different guests I'm planning to have on, are going to be people, like I said, within the community. I know a ton of artists, a lot of musicians and stuff like that, but I also know a lot of people who are involved in different sorts of things, whether it be film or theater or all sorts of different things that I'd like to have people on and just kind of tell their story and to make it interesting. I'm hoping to post, every week or two and just try to bring on new people every week that the average listener at home is going to find interesting. We'll chat about all sorts of different things. We'll chat about music. We'll chat about what's going on in the world today. We'll chat about sports. We'll chat about music, maybe new albums we've been listening to, that kind of stuff. Anything that people do at home and they pay attention to, you'll be able to take something out of. Since the pandemic has started, I've found myself obviously not so busy with music. I've spent a lot of time teaching myself how to do some home demo recordings, and I've been writing a lot and stuff like that, but I just wanted to try something different, something that I can get out of my own comfort zone of being on stage as a musician and try to bring something unique to people. So that's basically the general direction of where I'm going with this podcast. This very first week, I was lucky enough to have a friend of mine in who works in the industry and is very, very interesting. His name is Peter Green. If you know me, you've probably met Peter. He's worked on me with a number of projects over the years. He has produced my album in 2018. He's played in the band with me. He's toured with me. He's also a great friend of mine that we've traveled, besides music, we've traveled together on vacations, and we've had a lot of fun over the years. I can't quite remember when I met Peter. I met him, he was working with Rum Ragged there, the original Rum Ragged, and I think I was looking for a sound tech, and I met Peter, and it could have been over a beer or two, but it just kind of ran from there. So really great guy, really, really interesting stories. You know, he works with a ton of great artists, and you know, he's just trying to stay above water, especially during COVID, you know, just like myself. So I was very lucky to have Peter on. Another side of Peter is that he's a good friend of mine, so I found him very comfortable to chat with first. You know, I'm learning, and I'm dipping in slowly to this new podcast world. So I thought it would be great to have somebody who I felt comfortable with, who I could just chat back and forth with to make it seem, you know, obviously as natural as possible. So Peter will be in here soon. Yeah, hopefully you can catch this podcast here every couple weeks or every week or so. You know, we'll try to get some fluid movement going, and try to keep stuck to a nice schedule. But as of now, we're just kind of floating with the things. So thanks so much, folks, for tuning in to the first ever episode. I hope I haven't been rambling on too much so far. I'm just trying to learn how to do it all. So thanks for tuning in, and make sure you stick around for a great interview with Peter Green. And I'd like to welcome Peter Green to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Peter, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for coming in to the first ever episode of my podcast. I really appreciate you coming in. As I had previously mentioned, I wanted to get somebody who I knew and who I felt comfortable with. So I want to say thanks for obviously coming in and helping me out with this.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll get right down to it. So maybe just introduce yourself and who you are and what you do.
So I'm Peter Green. I'm originally from Newfoundland, living in Halifax now. I am an audio engineer by trade. So I spend most of my time when we're in the real world of touring around with bands and
by real world you mean like pre-COVID or after COVID?
Pre or post-COVID, yeah.
Right.
And so I spend most of my time on the road, living in vans and buses and hotels, and then doing real concerts and all those fun things. And aside from that, sort of make records and stuff on the downtime when I'm home, and play a little bit myself and all that stuff.
Yeah, right on. So, like, what kind of got you started in music? I know you did go to school for sound engineering. Am I right in saying that? Yeah. That was in Kona, I believe.
Yeah, I did the College of North Atlantic program in Stephenville.
Right.
In 2011 to 13 or something.
Right on. So like, what kind of got you started in music, like at a young age, kind of, or was that a thing? Did you start playing music at a young age, or was it something you got interested in later going on in life, or? It's
sort of been a thing right from the beginning. I took my first guitar lesson with Dwayne Andrews when I was 7. You know,
that's a place to start for sure.
Right. So, you know, there was always music in the house. Dad plays as well. So there was music in the house all growing up, and then sort of grew from there. Got my first PA when I was 10 or 11 or something. And, you know, so I always had a pretty strong direction of where I might head.
Right. So, obviously you started playing young, and then you went to school. Was that right out of high school? You went and did that program at Kona, or? Yeah,
so I graduated high school in 2011, and in the following September hopped right into that program.
Okay, cool. So, and that was a 2-year program, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, right. So after that, kind of what happened then? What did you kind of do after you graduated the program?
So actually, in between years of school, so the summer between year 1 and 2, I started working at a local production company here on the island called Pro Audio, and then worked a full festival season that summer. Then went back to school, finished that up, and got some more knowledge under my belt, and then came back out of school and hopped right back into the industry. Worked for Pro Audio for a number of years, 4 or 5 years, and then did that mostly during the summers, and worked the bars during the winters, and worked at O'Reilly's for a while, worked at Shamrock for a while, and sort of met the whole crew.
Yeah, that's right. So I had mentioned in the intro that I can't quite pinpoint when I had actually met you. I think it was a night at Aaron's Pub, and I remember it was at the time you were playing with Rum Ragged, and you were I guess an original member, say, of Rum Ragged or something like that. But I remember I really met you through Mark and Aaron of Rum Ragged, and I think I might have needed you for a sound guy or something like that. So, do you remember anything about when we kind of met?
Not a clue.
Yeah, me neither. It's a little bit hazy for sure, but I had obviously mentioned that we've known each other for a number of years now, and we've worked together on a ton of different projects. We've traveled together. We've done tours together. We did after the release of the Talking Back Fool, which we will get into as well. But we've also been on our own little excursion, across the pond to Europe, which is we probably saved that one for a different podcast in itself. But so something like right now, obviously with COVID on the go, and what have you been really doing, say, in the last year to kind of keep yourself busy and to keep yourself entertained more?
I've been so when COVID started, I was on tour with Alan Doyle. So we on March 8th we played our last gig in Vancouver, and after a 3-week run, we all went home, hoping to full planning to go back out again on the 17th, and that never happened. And so we came home and sort of strapped in for the first few months. It was a bunch of quiet time, focused a bunch on studio work, mixed a few records, produced a few tracks myself, and then I was lucky enough in sort of October to Christmas time to put a few gigs again under my belt. Did about 25 or so between Alan and Tim Baker and the Once and the Ennis Sisters. I sort of jumped between those guys, and now I'm pretty heavy in the studio again, working on a record, a collaboration project with Alan.
Nice. That seems pretty interesting. So for anybody maybe who's listening at home, or when you say you're working with Alan, you're on the road with Alan, like maybe you can describe some of the stuff you might do on a day-to-day basis, or what kind of work that Alan has you for. I know you're out on the road. You obviously done a bunch of work with Alan, in Canada, and you've been down in the U.S. I know you were down in the U.S. with Tim Baker as well.
Yep.
What kind of work do you do, say, on a day-to-day basis with acts like that?
So with Alan, I'm the monitor engineer, so I handle all of the sound on stage. So all that group is on in-ear monitors. So I'm monitoring their ears and seeing what's on the go, making sure they're all happy with what they all want to hear. And then with Tim, as you mentioned, Tim Baker from Hey Rosetta, I'm his front house guy and tour manager. So that's a little bit of a broader role. So I'm as a front house guy, so I'll mix the sound out front for the audience, and then as a tour manager, depending on the level you're at, you're doing everything from driving the van and renting the van and booking hotels and advancing gigs, making sure your rider's there, making sure food's taken care of, making sure merch is taken care of. Sort of everything aside from the actual music that happens on stage, you're in control of.
Right, so it seems like it's pretty action packed. It seems like it's a lot of work to it.
It certainly can be.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people maybe who don't know a whole lot about the music industry or what kind of goes on. A lot of time might assume that it's maybe sometimes lesser roles, but that seems like a pretty big role, especially with Tim. In with doing that kind of stuff.
Totally, yeah. And with Tim, Tim's a little bit of a smaller operation than Alan, so that's why I wear so many hats. With Alan, all the same stuff happens, and even more so because it's on a larger scale. But there's more people to wear all the different hats, so that's where I'm more of a specific role in that camp. And there's a front house guy and a tour manager and a lighting guy and a promoter and all that stuff aside from just me. Right.
Very interesting, very neat, and a great insight to what kind of goes on behind the scenes. That's for sure. Thanks for sharing that. Maybe I'd like to dig into some of the production stuff that you've done, over the course of the years. Like maybe you can let people know, what you've done, what you've worked on, production wise, and maybe what you're planning to work on, or what's in the future, or anything in that sense.
Right. So I started really doing studio work with Alan, funny enough. Well, as a kid, I produced my own, my own band's records and stuff, in high school and that sort of thing, as most musicians do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the summer I graduated high school, I got introduced to Alan, and he was putting a studio in his basement and was looking for somebody with a little bit of a technical head to help him out with that, and done a bunch of work with him. Then since there, I've mixed a few records for my own band, Wake of the World, and produced, mixed, and engineered an Irish Descendants record a couple years ago. Then I did your record, Talking Back Fool, in 2018, I believe.
Yep, 2018. And
then since that, I've been on the road for the most part. And then in between, I've gotten to do mixed a few records. I haven't fully produced much since then. But it's life in the studios definitely taken more of a role in recent times.
Right. So, like, as a musician myself, we all kind of know that how hectic it is and that kind of stuff. So, what would you, what kind of role would you prefer to be in? Would you rather be in the studio, or do you like being on the road, or are you happy with a mix of both? Or, because as a musician, as an entertainer, or somebody in the industry, it's always very sporadic and things change. But I think that's what a lot of people like about the industry who work in it. They get to do something differently. It's not kind of cookie cutter. It's not 9 to 5. But in your eyes, like what role would you prefer to be in, or would it be both?
It's funny, people ask all that. Where I performed for a number of years myself too. I played in Rum Ragged, as you mentioned, and played with the Masterless Man, and played in your band as well. And it's people always ask whether I'd rather, which side of the stage I'd rather be on, whether I like being in the spotlight or far away from it. And my response really to any of it is, as long as I'm doing something in the music industry, I don't really care what it is. I love all parts of it.
Right.
So whether it's in the front or the back or on the side or wherever you want me, it's always fun just working alongside musicians with like minds, and I've got a technical mind myself to a certain extent, but so I like all that. But I like playing as well.
Right. So like I said, it's kind of a dash of everything. That's what keeps it interesting. I'm sure in your eyes it is with mine anyways. I'm obviously not on the technical side nearly as much as you are, and luckily I've had you over the years to answer any maybe questions I might have had with that kind of stuff. So that's some great insight into that for sure. Moving forward, like, what are some of your maybe your favorite things about like the music industry, and maybe some of your least favorite things? I know, people deal with, in the industry, not getting calls back, or losing gigs, or, dealing with shitty promoters, or, obviously that all comes with the nature of the business. So maybe like, what are some of your least and favorite things of the industry?
Definitely some favorite things are working with the like-minded people that we all are. We're all a bit of a special breed to be able to take on this crazy business, and try to love it while we're all doing it. So that's definitely one thing. I also love, it's sort of a love-hate relationship with the travel part. I love it, beyond words, but there's also some days when you're stuck in snowy northern Alberta that you'd rather be home on the couch.
Or perhaps an overnight in New Brunswick.
Or, wherever that might be.
Yeah, no, that's right. I understand that. As like you say, as a musician myself, I do love the travel aspect. I love being on the road, but there's obviously some nights that are a little darker than others, and there's other nights that that you put off a great show and you got a great audience, totally. and it makes a big difference, obviously. So that's great. So and what else was I going to ask Peter? What do you got planned for the future? Hopefully, there's the vaccine has been laid out. It's a starting process, especially here in Canada. Do you have any plans for the future, or is it still kind of up in the air? Are you still kind of winging it, or?
There's a bit of both going on. All of the acts that I work with are pretty established and pretty successful. Thankfully, they're the management teams and the booking agents and all that stuff are all working full force trying to, well, especially, on Alan's tour, for example, we canceled 5 legs of it. So it's Alan tours in 3-week segments. So we were pretty well booked up for the entire year. It was one of Alan's busiest years of his life. And so his management team is working steadily to rebook for the next segment, and then if that gets canceled, to rebook again and rebook again. So right now we're rebooked for fall of 2021. So crossing our fingers and toes, and praying that people keep smart and all that sort of stuff to get back out on the road. And sort of we'll see what happens, but one can hope.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's an understatement for sure. That one can definitely hope. It's in this weird COVID world that we're living in, we're all trying to make it out and just trying to make it out alive, really. But I think we've been pretty lucky here. I know you're living in Halifax,
totally.
but you've been home now for probably 2 or 3 months. I think you came home just before Christmas. I know we performed together. Peter actually played bass for the Tibbs Eve show that we were lucky enough to throw off here in St. John's over Christmas. So you've been home for a few months. So do you plan on staying in Newfoundland for another little while, or are you going to head back to Halifax soon, or or do you not know? Or
plans are sort of up in the air right now. I'm working on a record or two, so while those projects are ongoing, I'll definitely be around, and then that sort of brings me up to early spring or so if timelines stay as they're planned. So depending on how cases go, or if things are good here, if things are good there, hopefully the bubble might open again, so I'll be able to flop back and forth like I did in the fall. So we'll see what happens, but for now I'll hold strong here and hope the work keeps coming as well as it is.
Right. Yeah, and that makes total sense. Obviously you've been lucky enough to get some work here, and how could you turn that down? Obviously, and like you said, it would be great if we came to an opportunity where at least maybe the bubble opened up again, where you could travel back and forth, and you could maybe get some more work within the Atlantic provinces, or however that may work. I wanted to ask you one final question before we conclude here with this interview. I know you're a Green Bay Packers fan as much as myself. Kind of what got you into the Green Bay Packers? I don't know if you're not a great big sports guy. I don't know if you follow much hockey or baseball or that much, but I know you are a Packers fan because we've chatted about that in the past. So what kind of got you into that?
It's a family thing. Both my dad and my uncle grew up as, I'm not sure when they became fans, but as long as I've been alive, they've been Green Bay Packers fan. And sort of in recent years, I grew up a bit of a sports fan, sort of in high school playing sports and all that stuff. And then when music took over, that sort of took a back seat. But being able to take in a few football games on the road has been fun, and we
were chatting I think a few weeks ago, and you were telling me you went to see a game, I believe in Tennessee, was it?
In Kansas City.
Both 2 times, 2 different games? Or?
I missed the one in Nashville. So it's
right.
The Packers were in Nashville the day after I left.
Right. But you did see a game in Kansas City.
Yeah, I saw the Kansas City and Indianapolis when I was down there. We happened to have a day off in Kansas City when I was down touring with Tim, and took in a game by myself with a bunch of crazy fans, stuck myself in between a bunch of season ticket holders and held on.
Yeah, as a lifelong sports guy, I grew up, obviously with the Leafs and the Jays, and, a Raptors fan and a Green Bay Packers fan. I've managed to see, Raptors games over the years. I've seen a ton of Blue Jays games. I've seen some Leafs games, and I've seen a bunch of NHL games. But one thing I've never gotten to is a football game. And from what I can tell, it seems like a pretty wild atmosphere. I mean, I can't imagine, especially going by yourself. That must have been very interesting to take the whole atmosphere and to take the experience in as a guy just watching by yourself with nobody really to kind of talk to about it in the moment.
And not being an overly big guy myself, stuck in between a bunch of rowdy Chiefs fans is trying to stay alive.
Who I'm sure weren't having either beer that morning or anything.
No. It's a total sober gathering.
I mean, it must have been interesting though. Obviously as a Packers fan, it must have been pretty neat to actually be in a game that you're kind of impartial to both teams. So you're not really rooting for one team or the other. You're kind of rooting for a good game.
Well,
and
you had
good
no
atmosphere.
Choice to root for the home team.
Right, yeah. You didn't want to put yourself in a position
No,
like
I
that.
wasn't getting in danger.
No, not for the Indianapolis Colts by any means. I can totally get that. That's for sure. That's pretty neat. Well, Peter, I want to say thanks for coming in. I know this is
Thank you.
This is the first episode of what I'm trying to do here, and I'm just trying to make it interesting and keep listeners involved. And just a big thanks to Peter Green. If you want to check out Peter and any of the work he does, where can we find you two, Peter?
I'm all over social media. It's all sort of my private pages, but I'm happy to entertain you however I can. I'm usually posting updates on tourings or any fun happenings on the go. I'm on Facebook, mostly all over the place as Peter Green Audio, and check me out there.
Right on. Well, thanks again, man, for coming in, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Peter Green for stopping in this afternoon. Very insightful look into his world and the things that he does day to day. Great insight on how the type of stuff he does when he's on the road with touring acts and stuff that he does in the studio. I thought that was all very interesting, and I hope that folks at home did as well. With that being said, thanks so much for tuning in to the very first episode of the Dave Whitty Show. Hopefully we'll catch you on the next episode, and hopefully we can bring you more material with some more entertaining guests. You can find me and follow me on all social media platforms at Dave Whitty, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all sorts of things. I'm going to try to keep this a regular occurring thing, so make sure you tune in for the next episode. Thanks so much from downtown St. John's, Newfoundland. My name is Dave Whitty, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.